Paraguay's residency program is going away. Today I'm going to tell you about the changes that I've personally witnessed in Asunción, Paraguay, what the future holds, and how you can benefit from Paraguay's residency program right now. It has never been clearer to me that residency programs are only temporary. They are not permanent. The conditions change all the time across the board, across multiple countries on multiple continents. And we are going to talk about some examples about this later. And if you stay until the end of the video, I'm going to give you my best advice that you need to follow to take advantage of Paraguay's residency program. So some really important information I'm going to share with you. But let me first talk about the trends that I've been seeing. And these trends, they're not uniquely Paraguayan. They're actually happening in many parts of the world. And the trends that I've been seeing, such as increasing food prices across the board. Even though Paraguay is a country that has a very strong agricultural sector, food prices are going up, they're going up, they're going up, especially at the fancier places. We're talking about the main malls in Asunción. For instance, Shopping del Sol, we're talking about Mariscal, we're talking about the main malls where prices have really inflated over the past year. Nowadays, if you want to have cheap lunch, you typically go to one of the major supermarkets. Some of them exist inside the malls. That's where you get the cheapest food, across the more lavish neighborhoods. If you want to eat, at a nice place where you have air conditioning and where the prices are still relatively low, you go to one of the largest supermarkets. Some of them are in the malls. Other times you actually have them out on the streets. It's relatively inexpensive. But then if you look at the food courts that are inside the mall, that are not part of the supermarkets, if you want to eat there, you pay like double or triple now. So yeah, prices have gone up a lot. And this isn't just about the food. If we take a look at rent, those of you who have visited Asunción, prior to 2023, you've probably witnessed some drastic changes to the rent prices, especially on Airbnb. Rent prices in Villa Mora and Recoleta have increased by almost 100% over the past 12 to 24 months, depending on where you're looking at. You heard me right. An Airbnb that used to cost $600 to $700 costs you roughly $1,200 to $1,400 right now. It is just a matter of fact. What drives prices more than anything is supply and demand. And this also holds true in real estate, including renting in Asunción. I wanted to touch very briefly on the real estate market outside the cities. In the suburbs, we're talking about Luque and San Lorenzo. Like if you want to purchase relatively reasonably priced real estate in Asunción, or if you're willing to go a little bit outside, you can actually look into the cities of Luque and San Lorenzo. That's where you find very reasonably priced neighborhoods, and these parts of Asunción are developing now at a rapid speed. And what's great about these neighborhoods is that there are not a lot of gringos living there. If you want the upscale lifestyle in Asunción, even though it's nothing like the upscale lifestyle in a place like Bangkok or New York, but anyway, if you want the upscale lifestyle, you live in Villa Mora or Recoleta. That's as good as it gets in Asunción. However, if you want more laid backness, and if you want lower prices, and if you want to live in a quieter place, you probably want to start looking at different neighborhoods, specifically Luque, San Lorenzo, or even leaving Asunción altogether to achieve one of your most important goals, which is to reduce the amount of money that you spend on rent and food. What about purchasing land in Paraguay? This is a question that we're being asked a lot on this channel and by email. A lot of you guys are looking to purchase land in Paraguay, and this, comes for a number of reasons. First of all, foreigners are allowed to own land in Paraguay, unlike most countries in Southeast Asia, where land ownership is highly restricted, meaning foreigners cannot own land in those countries in Southeast Asia, and they can also not become citizens of Southeast Asian countries. The good news is that this is completely different in Paraguay. You, as a foreigner, you can obtain residency and convert to permanent residency if you don't get it right away, and you have a path to citizenship, which is powerful. And in Southeast Asia, you don't have that a lot of the times. So naturally, foreigners who value land ownership will start looking at different geographic locations, including South America, where foreigners are permitted to own land. Land, cattle, precious metals, and even guns. And I myself have been looking into purchasing land in Paraguay, and I have spotted a number of areas in the country of Paraguay that are very appealing to me for a number of reasons. I have plans for starting businesses, I have plans for lots of different stuff that I don't want to share right now, and until I have executed those plans, I will not start sharing them. But just to be clear, land is very cheap in Paraguay. Oftentimes you can find land for as little as $800 a hectare, but of course you can also pay as much as $10,000 a hectare. It really depends on where the land is located. It also depends on whether it is developed land or undeveloped land. Naturally, undeveloped land will be much cheaper. And the further you go away from the capital city, Asunción, the cheaper it gets. However, that doesn't mean that land close to Asunción is cheap or free. It's not. It still has a pretty high price tag. If you want the cheapest of lands, then you probably want to start looking at the Chaco region in Paraguay, which is pretty far away from Asunción. It's closer to Bolivia, but that's where you actually can find the cheapest land in the country. Why am I telling you all of this? Because the title of this video is actually Paraguay Residency is going away, it's ending, and it is ending for all the reasons that we just mentioned. Land prices are going up, real estate prices are going up, food prices are going up. As the country starts developing, as foreign investment starts flowing into the country, which started many years ago, Paraguay is becoming more expensive. And it is only a matter of time until the local population, specifically the lower end of the spectrum, starts complaining. As soon as protests start happening, and I think we're not too far away for certain cities in Asunción, because again, it's really important that life is affordable to the locals, to the indigenous people, to the citizens of Paraguay. And this isn't any different to the situation that played out in a place like Portugal. Like Portugal's non-habitual resident regime opened up its arms to so many Americans and Canadians who took full advantage of the system. And why shouldn't they have taken full advantage of the system that welcomed them? I mean, it's natural for you to take advantage of an incentive that's being offered to you. However, the local population suffered a lot from this, and it's not just about the Americans and Canadians that moved to Portugal to take advantage of massive tax breaks, tax deductions. It's also about nationals from other European Union countries that moved to Portugal to take advantage of this program. So this didn't just apply to Americans and Canadians, it applied to pretty much anyone who qualified under the NHR regime conditions. Naturally and logically, what happened was that the local population got fed up due to increasing rent prices and pretty much making it unaffordable for locals to rent in the major cities in Portugal. We're talking about Lisbon and Porto. A lot of people started complaining about the situation. If you cannot make ends meet anymore, you have to do something about it. Salaries are stagnant, yet real estate prices kept going up and going up and going up. So naturally, this is just what happens. And it is only a matter of time until the same situation plays out in a place like Paraguay. But there's obviously another important factor here: supply and demand. Real estate in Portugal is more limited than it is in Paraguay for a number of reasons. And we're not talking about the major cities, comparing a city like Lisbon to Asunción. Like in Asunción, there's so much land left for developments. And I think at this point, there just aren't enough people moving to Asunción for those changes to happen quickly. However, I think that this is a real possibility and it is going to happen eventually. It's not a question of if, but when. And I can give you numerous examples. Now we just talked about Portugal, but there are many more examples in Europe, for instance in Spain, in Italy, in other places where the same situation played out. But what about Paraguay's tax incentives? Did I just say Paraguay? I did. please excuse me. And I'm not talking to our Paraguayan followers because they typically don't like me calling the country of Paraguay, Paraguay. They don't like that. And that's why I started pronouncing it as Paraguay, which is also not correct because in Spanish it would be Paraguay, right? So there are different ways to pronounce this, and I'm just sticking with this way now. Another super important point that I wanted to pass on to you is that just take a look at the history of Paraguay as a residency program. Not too long ago, you could obtain permanent residency by depositing a little bit of money into a local bank account. The amount used to be $5,000. This incentive went away for a number of reasons. There are many people who took advantage of this option, to get permanent residency in Paraguay by depositing $5,000 in a bank account, but those people didn't really add any economic, value to the country. They just deposited money and it didn't add any value. And so I totally agree with Paraguay getting rid of this program, because at the end of the day, if someone becomes a resident, you want that person to add value to your country. And just keeping $5,000 in a bank account, there's just not enough value there. There's just not enough productivity there. Now you can get temporary residency, and after 2 years you can convert to permanent residency. So as you can see, the requirements have changed, and I can pretty much guarantee you that the requirements will keep changing over the coming years. It's very possible that the requirements will change by the end of this year. Nobody knows. So if you're interested in obtaining residency in Paraguay, I recommend you to take action now and do it before it's too late. Do it before the requirements become too hard. And it's really only a matter of time. It's very possible that in the future, for you to obtain residency in Paraguay, you may have to start a business. You may have to be employed by a local company. You may have to purchase real estate. I mean, these options are not unheard of, These changes are not unheard of. In fact, it happened in many countries worldwide. So really think about this. If you're serious about Paraguay, if you want to take advantage of Paraguay's tax incentives, or if you like a slower paced life, then why wouldn't you want to go to Paraguay and obtain residency now? Well, it's not so difficult for you to meet the requirements. I really don't see Paraguay becoming this prime vacation spot like Thailand or the Philippines, because Paraguay does not have access to the ocean, and I think that turns a lot of people off, and that's actually a good thing. And I don't think Paraguay's territorial tax system is going away anytime soon. I think it will stay intact for years to come. Of course, I could be wrong with my estimation, but just given Paraguay's geographic location, values, and how I see the country develop over the coming years, I don't see this as a threat. I don't see it happening at all. If you're interested in obtaining a residence permit in Paraguay, incorporating a company, purchasing real estate, then please feel free to reach out to us now. We are a full package relocation agency that specializes in Paraguay, and we have helped people from over 5 continents get residency in Paraguay. As always, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching Nomad Elite, and we see you on the next video.